Good afternoon, everybody. On this Friday, October 24th, 2025, I got all your stories for your rush hour ride home a week before Halloween. Before you know it, it's November, which means Thanksgiving, then Christmas, and then it's 2026. And boy, did we not accomplish anything we wanted to this year. That's okay. We're still alive. We're kicking. That's all that matters. On today's episode, we'll be talking about this NBA gambling ring. Pretty wild stuff. I actually didn't realize it was as big of a story as it is when I first saw it, but it is. There's people getting arrested, livelihoods ruined, and now we have our boy Shaquille O'Neal commenting on it. And then more on Blake's evidence or lack thereof. Blake Lively, of course, said, well, the dog ate my homework, and because they were using Signal messaging apps, we don't have any evidence, which concludes that they were actually doing something nefarious. So that's not how it works, but we'll get into that and very interesting stuff. And then I'm going to answer some of your questions. I posted on Instagram if anyone has any questions. So we'll go into those, some involving if Laura Owens will get jail time, and then a couple questions on politics. So we're going to round it up nicely for your ride home. All this and more starts right now on The Rush. So we're going to get into these text messages that are part of Exhibit 29 of Blake Lively's spoliation claim. This is the claim that the evidence is not there and they couldn't acquire it because it just disappeared. So we're going to get into this in a second, but here's what Blake's attorneys have actually said. Justin Baldoni allegedly used auto-deleting messages amid lawsuit. Blake Lively's lawyers respond. So I'll share a few quotes from them. Defendants have hid the ball at every turn in the discovery process, either failing to produce documents or improperly cloaking them in the attorney-client privilege, forcing no less than 12 discovery-related motions to date against defendants and their aligned third parties. This is from Blake's attorneys. And what's interesting about this is, how much of this is true versus how much is this them saying we'll never be able to find the evidence for the accusations because they said it would be untraceable. I mean, therefore, Blake can really make whatever claim she wants against Baldoni, saying, well, I'll never have the evidence to back it up because it was all illegally or privately, communicated. So Stephanie Jones also had the same relatively similar point that Blake Lively was making, and she said it reveals, her legal counsel wrote that evidence reveals that soon after Lively initiated this action, Jennifer Abel, along with Brian Friedman and others, were actively directing social media messaging intended to promote Baldoni and disparage Lively. So this is what it all comes down to, right? We've been talking about this for the better part of 1,000 years, right? Or all of 2025. And it's the question of who started it. Blake Lively thinks that Baldoni started some smear campaign, and Baldoni's side keeps saying, no, we were just lawyering up to defend ourselves from her. Well, Exhibit 29 of Blake's spoliation claim shows the moment where Justin Baldoni's side had to lawyer up. And we've already shared this, but it has new meaning as we now see right here, early August, they're having a conversation. Melissa Nathan says, numbers don't lie, though, 50 million at the box office. This conversation that the movie has done well. And at this moment, they realize how wild what Blake Lively is doing is. So Jen Abel says, Blake and Ryan want Justin to put out a statement. This is unbelievable. And I'm going to share this statement with you guys, but this is evidence that Blake shared, but it actually really supports Justin Baldoni, that this statement that Blake and Ryan wanted him to put out was the moment that they decided, okay, we don't have any other options but lawyering up at this point. So Melissa said career killer for them in Wayfair because a statement would admit wrong, right? And they never ended up doing that. But if they did put this statement out, they for sure would be losing this case. So Melissa says lawyer up now. Jen says, this is so crazy. And I'm like, Jen, you haven't seen anything yet. Melissa says, honestly, I've never had anything like it. Can he please hire a lawyer? And hire a lawyer he did. We'll get to the statement in a second. R-String6 on Reddit said this: if people want to believe Blake and Ryan, that's one thing, but I don't understand why they don't understand why we believe Justin. And it's because of behavior like this. What kind of harassment victim has ever tried to coerce their harasser into writing a statement, taking the blame? Doesn't it cause your antenna to twitch? But they really can't fathom why other people would believe Justin, which is why they resort to all sorts of name calling like Baldoni wives or crazy mommy sleuths. And that's in reference to this August 12th, 2024 statement, which was written by Ryan Reynolds, but they wanted Baldoni to own up to it. This is the statement that Baldoni refused to share. Statement prepared by Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds on behalf of Baldoni, Heath, and Wayfair. And this is it. It ends with us was a troubled production, which we take full accountability for. We're very sorry to everyone we caused upset to privately and publicly. Blake Lively, Colleen Hoover, the entire cast and crew led with professionalism every step of the way. Any negativity aimed at them is ours to own. We mutually agreed that the cast would be promoting the film separately and understand why. We have always said we are not perfect, and even if unintentionally make mistakes, we will always own them. We hold ourselves accountable. It's not anyone's job but ours, and that's part of being man enough. Oof, boy, they got him to use his own quote from his podcast, or they tried to. We will practice what we preach. We are learning and growing from the experience, and we thank everyone for their patience as we find a better way to proceed. We're very proud of the film and the welcome arms that it's been received. Part of our work is to have uncomfortable conversations for public growth. The film is doing that on screen, and we're doing that off screen. Thank you to the cast in public, the cast, crew, and public for the opportunity to be imperfect and to be given the space to learn and grow with humanity and dedication. So it's not a terrible statement, but it does take ownership up that they were the ones that did something wrong. And in their response, they just had a hard time working with Blake Lively, and all of this was caused by her. That's their argument. And it was this statement that Blake wanted them to read, which was their final thing, saying, nope, this is it. No one will ever want to work with us again. We're not doing it. So will that exhibit help Blake out? I don't see how. I don't see how she's going to twist this. I think any jury sees this and they see how conniving it is, really. And let's say Blake was the victim. Wouldn't she just publicly share her story? She wouldn't have to, privately send a statement for them to make. It reads to me like Blake was trying to catch them admitting to something they didn't do. And we've seen this in the past where politicians that were getting fired from public outcry regretted it afterwards because in hindsight, what they did really might have deserved an apology, but not a full firing. There is examples where people were admitting to things just to have them go away, and then that was being used against them. And this is exactly what would have happened to Baldoni. This would have been used against him literally forever to say, well, then why did you release this statement apologizing? So on one end, it's like you want to respect and appreciate when people do own up and apologize. But on the other, knowing you have to be impeccable with your words, which is why I would never apologize for something I'm not sorry for, and if I am sorry for something, I would apologize. You know what I mean? It's like I live in an upside down universe, like in an upside down universe right now, where you have to really know that words you say can and will be used against you in this weird world where everything's saved online. All right. Well, coming up next, we're going to talk about this NBA gambling ring. You don't have to follow basketball to see how interesting this is. Shaquille O'Neal reacts to the NBA arrest. This story coming next. Before we get into what Shaquille O'Neal had to say, let's go to the gambling ring as it's explained by our own FBI. Have a listen.
Individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today. Former, current NBA players and coaches. What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing. Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Casa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families. And you'll hear more about those details today. The charges and the arrests that were taken down across this country range from wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, robbery, illegal gambling. This FBI will leave no room for any perpetrator of crime across this country. You hear a lot about our work of defending the homeland and crushing violent crime. Well, this work is also representative of a colossal portion of the FBI's mandate to keep America safe and to keep our entertainment industry fair and secure.
So my question, which I don't think we have answers to yet, is how are these NBA basketball players involved? With regards to, were they rigging games? You know, it's one thing to gamble, but were you rigging games? You know, Pete Rose was banished from baseball. He could never, he never made it into the Hall of Fame, I believe, even though he's the all-time hits leader because he was gambling on the game. And then he says he never gambled against his team to lose, only gambled for them to win, which does that make it less bad? Probably to an extent. But you know, it's like these athletes are paid millions of dollars. There's always money on the line. At the very least, the sport needs to be played fairly. So here's what Shaquille O'Neal, one of my favorite basketball players, has to say.
Know the letter of the law when it comes to gambling and sports gambling, and I don't want to sit up here like I'm some perfect guy. Like every now and then when I go to Vegas, I'll play some craps and I'll play some roulette, but never gambled at anybody's house. Don't know anything about poker, so I don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the Chauncey thing. But I know Chauncey. I know Damon very well. Played with Damon, so I don't want to sit up here. But I'm ashamed that those guys would put their families and their careers in jeopardy. There's an old saying in the hood: all money ain't good money. So if you're making $9 million and you're dealing in certain things, like how much more do you need? Especially if you know you get caught, you can do jail time.
How much more do you need? Now, okay, so the more I'm following this, the more I'm starting to wonder, were they not betting on basketball games? Listen, I think Vegas is essentially a legalized, I mean, it's gambling. So it's like what makes it legal in one place but illegal in another? You know, I guess, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Is it whether or not you pay taxes? Is that what it comes down to? Maybe they were gambling and not paying taxes on their winnings. We'll have to see how this all breaks down. But I'm starting to question if this is a big nothing burger. Although it seems as though once you get the crime families involved, there might be something to this story. Okay, well, let's move it on from here. I, every once in a while, like to ask you guys if you have any questions for me, and being it a Friday afternoon, I figured you're mailing it in at work. I'll mail it in at work too. Let's answer some of your questions. And I got, of course, a creepy question about my wife's body, which don't do that. This guy goes, Tasha really likes showing off that beautiful stomach of hers. I will relay the compliment, but I think it's a little weird because A, it's not a question, and B, I'll let her know. Weird, odd. Will Laura Owens ever go to jail for all the shit she has done? Well, that's the big question, right? I mean, she's being charged with 7 felonies, so she's well on the path to going to jail. I'll put it this way. You have a greater chance of going to jail if you've been charged with felonies than if you haven't. So she'll have the chance at some sort of plea deal, probably pretty soon, where she'll have to admit to her crimes, or maybe not all of them. Maybe she'll plea, maybe they'll take away 5 of the felony charges and get her to admit to perjury and whatever. And then she might still have to serve a year in prison. Maybe she goes to jail and 3 months later they let her out. I have no idea. Maybe, is there a way for her to get a plea deal that doesn't involve jail time? I suppose. But there's a lot of charges against her. So I don't see them being that lenient on her, considering she's shown no signs of remorse and no signs of, admitting at fault at all. So we'll have to see. What do you think the outcome will be for the Laura in San Francisco case? Doesn't she realize Mike will happily stay? I think with Laura, so her case has been pushed back to November 5th. I'm going to buy a refundable ticket, and I'll decide on November 4th if I'm going to go or not. That's basically what I'm going to do. I'll wait and see if she's going to show up. But I would love it for her to lose, because that means Mike Maricini has his restraining order lifted, and maybe it opens up to better job opportunities for him, and who knows what. But it really just comes down to him, putting an end to this terrible chapter of his life. So I don't see any way in which Laura wins The question for her would be, if she decides not to go to San Francisco because of her quote unquote health issues, that maybe she takes that as a win, because then she can say, well, I still wanted the restraining order, but I couldn't make it and the system wasn't fair, or whatever. That's why I think the best case scenario is for her to go in person and lose in person. But she probably knows she will lose. She probably knows the judge is kind of onto her shtick. And for that reason, I think maybe she'll try to find a way to weasel out of it. Kristen says, is there anything Trump is doing as a president that you do like or agree with? I do appreciate this question. I think this is a type of question I get kind of often from Trump supporters, where they go, just give us something. There must be something he's doing right. Now, listen, as a president, there should be lots of things that you're doing right. It seems as though where we are with our president in less than his first year back in his office, right, second term, is that more people want to make whataboutism claims. Well, what about what Biden did, or what about what Obama did in order to justify Trump? And the one thing that you could give Trump credit for is that he has secured in part the southern border. But my question is, at what cost, right? The governor of Texas was putting up these floating barbed wire, buoys to separate the river so people couldn't swim across the river. But again, people were getting caught in the buoys and dying and drowning. So it's like, at what cost is it worth that? Now, obviously, we're a country of immigrants. We're a melting pot. So immigration reform is an issue that has to be worked on. Absolutely. But at what cost? Do I think that ICE is a net positive? 1,000% no, I don't. I don't think it's a net positive. In fact, how about this? Here is a video of ICE shooting a tear gas grenade at a priest, hitting the priest in the face. This is real stuff that's happening. Clergyman hit in face with projectile during protest in Oakland. This is the stuff that's happening. I mean, that's insanity, folks. And they're not arresting people that have committed violent crimes. And my thought of what's going on is those that are okay with the immigration sort of the ICE raids that are happening, think that it's going to make their life better. So what am I supposed to give Trump credit for? Tax cuts? Effectively, people will spend more money because health insurance is going up. The tax cuts to the ultra wealthy are costing us another $1 trillion in lost revenue. So what are we supposed to be grateful for? His big, beautiful ballroom, which he didn't get congressional approval for, blowing up Venezuelan boats that may be drug operatives, or maybe they're innocent civilians. We'll never know because he didn't go through due process. Are we supposed to be grateful to him for the ceasefire that's happened between Israel and Gaza, even though it's already been violated? Ending the Russia-Ukraine war, which hasn't happened. Grocery prices going down, which hasn't happened. The only thing that has happened that's good is like gas prices are down, but that's really because we're about to enter a recession, right? When gas prices go down, it's good in the short term for gas prices, but it's a tell that people aren't traveling and going on vacation. Canada is not visiting the United States. Vegas is down 10% with its tourism. There are so many different ways that we're getting penny pinched right now, that what am I supposed to be grateful that he has done for us? He's given billions of dollars to Argentina. The tariffs are just a tax on the American public. I mean, I could point in any direction. The stripping down of the health services, so we don't even know if there's a COVID breakout or measles, because we've got like this sort of vaccine hesitancy because we're kind of like in this world where people don't want to believe science anymore. Where am I supposed to be grateful? That he's releasing the Epstein files, which he hasn't done? That he's using the government shutdown as a way to continue to strip away jobs, right? Doge was supposed to be this thing. We're going to get rid of what do they think? We're going to find $3 trillion in excess spending. They didn't take one fucking penny from the Pentagon. They got their balls just tightly gripped by the Pentagon. They didn't take a penny from them. That's where all of the spending goes. The question was asked, where does taxpayer money actually go? It goes mainly to defense spending, or I guess we call it now war spending, the Department of War. That's where our money goes. $50,000 bonuses to ICE agents, why can't that money go to teachers so that we can get more and better and, teachers and subsidies to get more people studying health so we can get more doctors? I mean, it's not rocket science how to fix a lot of the problems we have. The reason they're not being fixed is because there's so much money being spent by rich and powerful people that's keeping the programs from even getting discussed. So the solutions to this broken healthcare system have never been more obvious. And those solutions are to quit duct taping it and do a complete overhaul, which is universal healthcare. It actually leads perfectly into the question, how's it been mentally for you covering more political stuff? I'll be honest, covering political stuff has been one of the least mentally challenging things I've done. The hate that I've received covering the dating shows is greater than the hate I've received covering politics. Or I should say this, the hate that I do receive covering politics doesn't stick to me because I know truly what side I stand on. So when I talk about things like Mahmoud Khalil, who was the pro-Palestinian protester who was being wrongfully detained, when that leads to a whole slew of conversations calling me anti-Semitic, I can stand by the fact I believe in due process. A guy that was never, formally charged with any crimes whatsoever. If he committed all these terrible crimes people say, why didn't they charge him for them? Same thing with a lot of these rioters that they say, well, he kicked a police officer, and then after being detained for 3 days, they release them. Well, why would they do that? Because there's no actual crime being committed. Abrego Garcia, the guy that they said was MS-13, they accused him of all these terrible things. And then when it came down to it, they're like getting him for, running an Uber pool with a couple of people they say are illegal immigrants. I am paraphrasing here. But so it comes down to look, everything I fought for is what we should all be fighting for, which is fair judicial systems, so we don't have to trust the powers that be that they're doing their job ethically. It's why we want body cams. It's why we want due process. It's why we want the appeals court, all these things to exist so that you don't wrongfully put someone behind bars, so that you don't wrongfully blow up a ship, so that you don't wrongfully put us into wars. And it's just, it couldn't be further from the direction we're going. It couldn't be. So is there anything Trump is doing as a president that you do like? No, fucking no. No, there isn't. He campaigned on getting free fertility treatment for people. You know what he's telling you? If you want to get pregnant, go fuck yourself. That's what he's telling you. Go fuck yourself. He's building a goddamn ballroom. And I always say you can walk and chew gum at the same time, but he's not doing either. So he's not even asking permission for, going to war.
And Mr. President, if you are declaring war against these cartels and Congress is likely to approve of that process, why not just ask for a declaration of war?
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country.
And there it is. And then once we're done with drugs, will there be other types of terrorists, like different political parties? Are we just going to kill them too? It seems like a big leap to go from drug runners to political people, but how do we know they're even drug runners? Are you going to start saying that your political enemies have drugs on them and you're just going to blow them out of the water? Trump pardons convicted Binance founder Changpeng Zhao. President Donald Trump pardoned the Binance founder, who is widely known as CZ. He pled guilty in 2023 to enabling money laundering while CEO of the huge cryptocurrency exchange. His plea was part of a $4.3 billion settlement Binance reached with the Department of Justice. So Trump's not for law and order. He's for releasing people that might have some sort of political or financial, reason to thank him afterwards. It's all about favors. Trump terminates all U.S. trade negotiations with Canada over the Reagan tariffs TV ad. So this is actually pretty wild. The war between the U.S. and Canada, this sort of cold trade war that's happening, continues, all because of this clip Ontario is running a $75 million anti-tariff ad featuring Ronald Reagan's own words. Donald Trump says that these are lies, that Reagan never said it, but the audio is very real. So here is the ad that is being run in Ontario, Canada. Have a listen.
Someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports. It looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs.
And that's exactly what's happening right now. Talk to the soy farmers. Talk to the people that are getting priced out because, we're bringing in Argentinian beef and all these other things that are going on as a result of the tariffs, which are a tax on the American consumer. That's all it is, period. I think people are starting to understand this. And that's why right now the polling it's real death for MAGA. I mean that metaphorically, not physically. I don't promote any political violence. It's a real death to the movement in that everything that he said he would do, he's not doing. And unless you're one of these elites that can buy $1 million plate to go sit in the ballroom, you ain't a part of the dance. That's it for us. We're done for the weekend. Appreciate you guys. Thanks always for the positive reviews. You guys have been so kind. If you haven't already, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen, and subscribe on YouTube. And we'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend. Don't do anything I wouldn't do and then some. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.